Like what you see here? Then be sure to subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8, a channel devoted to the history of college football. New videos drop twice a week. Click the card in the upper right corner or the link in the description to subscribe now. And now, on with our feature presentation.
Getting demoted to the minors is tough, and there's no denying that. For every player who gets promoted and realizes that they're going to be achieving their dream, there is another player who gets demoted and thinks that this might be the last time they ever do this. Instead of playing in front of packed stadiums with world-class facilities and getting to travel first class everywhere you go, you're traveling by bus with not great accommodations, and you're playing in front of tinier crowds where the game is more centered around gimmicks than it is about actually baseball. It's a tough adjustment. It's like the person who grows up with an incredible lifestyle where money is not an issue because their parents are super rich. But the moment they turn 18, they're on their own. And what was once commonplace is now an unattainable luxury, and your whole perspective changes. However, while demotions happen, and while just about every single player who doesn't want to go out on their own terms winds up getting demoted at some point, there are two ways you can handle that. One way is to handle it with grace and class. Understand that this is a business, and realize that if you do X, Y, and Z, and make the adjustments that the coaches and general manager are telling you to make, that you can make it back up. The other way is to, well, not do any of that, and do what this guy right here did that you've been watching this whole time. This is Seattle Mariners pitcher Ed Nunez, and during the 1988 season, he got the news that he hoped wasn't true. His time in the majors, at least for the moment, was done, and he'd be going down to AAA. And to say that Nunez did not exactly take the news well would be putting it lightly, because his reaction essentially boiled down to the galaxy brain 300 IQ move that always works of "you can't demote me, I quit." Yeah, Nunez did not exactly handle the situation with any grace, but as a result, we got what might just be, considering how insane it is, the craziest demotion in the near half-century-long history of the Seattle Mariners franchise. Before I talk about the reaction to the demotion, we need some context to understand, well, why Nunez was even being demoted in the first place. What's crazy about Nunez is that by the time the news came in during the 1988 season, he was still relatively young, as he was only 24 years old. However, he had been in the majors since 1982. It's not too often you hear of a player making his major league debut at the age of 18, but that's what Nunez was doing, as he was used in the bullpen either as a setup man or as a closer. Most notably, during the 1985 season, he pitched in 70 games, which was the second most of any pitcher on the team, and made him just one of two pitchers to make over 40 appearances with the Mariners that season. He had the top ERA on the team, posting a 3.09 ERA, and he had 16 of the team's 30 saves, with the second most saves on the team coming courtesy of Carl Best, who had 4. When Nunez was healthy during the mid-80s, he was a fairly solid pitcher and a reliable part of the Mariners' bullpen. There wasn't exactly a lot to like about the Mariners in the mid-80s, and that goes without saying, as they were an atrocious franchise that occupied the cellar of the AL West as much as Belle from Beauty and the Beast occupied the town library. But Nunez seemed like one of the bright spots for the time being. And then, the 1988 season happened, and everything just fell off a cliff, as the man, quite simply put, looked unplayable. In his first outing of the season, during a 12-7 loss to the Oakland A's, he did middle relief duty. In that 3-inning stretch, he allowed 7 hits, 5 runs, 3 of which were earned, allowed a home run, and needed a staggeringly high 58 pitches to get through the outing. Anything over 15 pitches in an inning is dicey. When you're approaching 20, that's not good. A week later, he had an outing in an 11-6 loss against the California Angels, where he got credit for the loss after pitching 2 innings and allowing 3 hits, 4 earned runs, and 2 walks while throwing 38 pitches. He followed that outing up a few days later against the Cleveland Indians, going in middle relief in a 12-6 loss, where in 1 2/3, he walked a guy, hit a guy, allowed a run and 2 hits, and threw 35 pitches, or 7 pitches for every 1 out. And to top it all off, he followed that up on May 2nd against the Toronto Blue Jays, pitching just 2/3 of an inning, throwing 30 pitches, allowing 4 hits, walking 2 guys, and allowing 4 runs, even though none of them were earned. He threw more balls than strikes in that one, throwing 16 balls compared to just 14 strikes. And remember that of those 14 strikes, 4 of them were hits. So he only threw 10 legitimate strikes that benefited him in 30 pitches. Said General Manager Dick Balderson on that outing, where Nunez couldn't even go an inning despite being brought in with the Mariners up 7-1, if we make a mistake, the pitcher's gotta have enough guts to suck it up and get the next guy out, instead of coming in and giving up 5 runs. Balderson never mentioned any names, but come on. That's the least subtle shot at someone I've ever heard. That's like me saying, if I were to be a player on the Los Angeles Angels who happened to be both a pitcher and a hitter, I would know better than to throw a fastball right down the middle. Gee, I wonder who you could possibly be talking about. To start off the 1988 season, Nunez looked like one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball. He was 6 outings into the season, and in 11 2/3 innings of work, had allowed 18 hits. His ERA was an abysmal 6.94, with 9 earned runs. However, when you factor in the runs that he allowed, but was not responsible for, he was on the mound for 15 runs in 11 2/3 innings, including 2 home runs. I know it obviously doesn't work like this, but if all of the runs that Nunez was on the mound for were earned, his ERA would have been a gross 12.05. Opponents were hitting .353 against him, were getting on base just under 41% of the time against him, and he had thrown 204 pitches in 11 2/3 innings, which comes out to just over 17 pitches an inning. When you go 11 2/3 and allow 24 base runners, or more than 2 per inning, yeah, you're done for. Nunez still believed in his abilities, which was understandable, because you expect a guy to have confidence in himself and whatnot. As he said after his outing against the Blue Jays, sensing that the writing might be on the wall, a lot of clubs need pitching, and I can still pitch. However, Dick Balderson and the team did not want to hear it, because after that abysmal outing against Toronto, that was it. Ed Nunez was going to be sent down to AAA, and was going to join the Calgary Cannons in the Pacific Coast League. This came as a massive blow to Nunez, who had been in the majors for the past few seasons, and was 1 year removed from being the top closer on the team, as he finished 40 games and saved 12 games in 1987. The idea of Nunez getting demoted at the start of the season seemed unfathomable, seeing how important he was during the mid-80s coming out of the bullpen. But after his awful start to the season, it was clear that something needed to change, and he needed to go down to AAA to regain his command and regain his control. So far, nothing about this seems unusual. Guys get sent down to AAA after poor starts to the season all the time, even if they're who you least expect at the start of the season. Heck, if you told me at the start of the year that Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy would both be in AAA for the Arizona Diamondbacks right now, I would not believe you one bit. But that's just the way it is. But what makes this demotion to the minors different is that Nunez, well, he did not take the news well at all. In fact, he took the news about as poorly as you can possibly take it. First, he demanded a trade, saying that he wanted out of Seattle, which, okay, I understand. Wanting a trade to another major league team who might believe in you versus going down to AAA where you don't know where your next opportunity will be is an understandable position to take. He's not the first guy to do it, nor will he be the last. But then, he stormed out and quit the team. Seriously, Ed Nunez essentially took the approach of, I'm not going to play for your minor league team. I'm quitting and never playing again. At the start of the day, Nunez was a Major League Baseball player. By the end of the day, he wasn't even a baseball player, as he was gone. He even said on his demotion, "I have a big house in Arizona with a 40-foot pool, and that looks mighty good right now." And when his family got wind of the news, they said, "Wait a second, at a timeout. Are you crazy? No, you're going to Calgary. End of discussion." They thought this for a few reasons. Number one, aside from the obvious fact that this would just be a terrible look for him and would destroy his chances of anyone taking a chance on him if he ever wanted to play again, you're still super young. You've got your whole career in front of you. A lot of guys don't even get called up to the majors until they're in their mid-20s. And here you are, still 24 years old, about to turn 25 at the end of the month, and you've got 7 years of service time. I know it might not seem like it, but your career is still in front of you. You're still a good pitcher. If you just do what you're supposed to do, you'll be back in no time. Number two, and perhaps most importantly, if he were to quit, he'd be leaving a whopping $420,000 on the table. That's a ton of money to leave on the table. That's over $1 million in today's money. And all you have to do is play baseball in a different city for a few weeks if all goes according to plan. Remember that Nunez hailed from Puerto Rico. According to the 1980 census, the median income with males and females taken into account was just $3,500. That was it. Nunez was making $1,000 more than that for every 2 games he played. His salary was more than 115 times the average salary in Puerto Rico. And he was going to throw it all away because he got demoted for a bit because he was pitching terribly? Yeah, his family wasn't having it at all. So he returned to the team and accepted his demotion, saying on why he initially made his decision, "I didn't want to go through this, and I didn't want my family to go through it. I wanted to quit for the rest of the season. But I'm too young to quit, and my family didn't want me to quit." Honestly, that doesn't seem like a man who changed his mind at all. That seems like a man who was dead set on quitting, would quit if he wanted to, and his family pressured him into staying in baseball to collect the $420,000 salary. Still, Nunez was fuming and spent his entire stint in the minors doing nothing but lashing out at Mariners manager Dick Williams, saying, "Williams doesn't know how to work with the young pitchers. Williams doesn't like me, and I don't like him. I'm not worried about saying those things. He's going to be out of the game pretty soon anyway." Everybody knows that. It's not a secret anymore. Nunez even added on Williams, "One bad day, and you don't even exist with him. When you're going bad, he hates you. He said on why I got demoted, you need work. He's the one that didn't let me work. Nobody can pitch when you get the ball once every 9 days. If ace starter Mark Langston has a bad day, he's no good anymore." That's the kind of person Williams is. I should note that at no point did Nunez ever have a stint where he waited 9 days in between appearances, as on average, he waited under 3 days between appearances, which comes out to 1 usage a series, which is pretty reasonable. It will not come as a shock to you that Nunez was traded away by the Mariners 2 months later. So just to recap the entire Nunez saga, you have a pitcher who is furious with his manager to the point where he's just lying about the situation and his usage, is pitching terribly, quits the team upon hearing the news of his demotion, and only comes back after saying, "My family made me do it." That's quite the reaction, I'll put it that way. Nunez may have been a 7-year vet by this point, but he was still super young, and you could tell this with his incident from 1988, because it was abundantly clear that he had a lot of growing up to do. Because to start off the 1988 season, the only heat he was throwing wasn't on the field with his pitches, but rather off of it with his words and his actions. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.